Dames en heren, ons is nou by gespreksgeleentheid 3, ons boere binne die nuwe landskap. Sandy Marque, die hoofuitvoerende amptenaar van Kwanalu, gaan dit voorhou en dan sal daar vrae en antwoorde wees wat gelei gaan word deur Mislali, wat hier langs my sit. I just want to introduce Sandy to you. Firstly, she is Kwanalu Chief Executive Officer. She's been in Kwanalu for the last 20 years. Most of her working career has been in the agricultural industry, which has given her an understanding of agricultural matters. She also has been involved in various facets of agriculture, including purchasing of raw material products, processing, cleaning and manufacturing, as well as the import and export of various seeds and grains. She's chairperson of the Agri SA Provincial Union CEO Forum and serves as vice chairperson of the Centre of Excellence Land, Agri SA. She also serves on numerous forums and boards, both provincially and nationally. Sandy, a hearty word of welcome, and we listen to what you have to share with us today.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Congress. Certainly a different way of holding our annual Congress. So I have the privilege of being able to share provincial perspective in the new landscape that we find ourselves in. So if I can just go to our next slide, just to look at some of the questions that I'm going to answer through the session. Where do we fit as a provincial union? What role does a provincial union play? And how does a province respond to the changing landscape that we find ourselves in? So on the next slide, we will see what our institutional structure basically looks like. I have simplified this, and we see that we have Agri SA, we have commodity groups, we have corporates and provinces. And as I said, it's my privilege today to talk about the provincial structure. And what makes us so unique in the province is that we have our farmers, our landowners, our associations, our unions, our commodities, our corporates, education, our universities, all sitting under one umbrella. And we find that this is where our leadership, our knowledge, our expertise, our strategic direction, our mandates, our governance, and our succession of leadership comes from. It comes from our farmers at local level, and it goes through all those structures until we get up to Agri SA. And at the end of the day, bringing us all together in the institutional structure is what we want to achieve, and that is that united collective power. So the question we asked ourselves, the next slide, is how does Kwanalu respond to this changing landscape that we found ourselves in? So back in 1997, we amalgamated with all farmers in KZN. We came under one umbrella, and it was a real visionary approach that our farmers at that time undertook. Our constitution, like Agri SA's, gives us our guiding principles. And during the last few years, we realized we had to evolve. The landscape, as we say, changed. So we then moved to a board of 7 persons where they are vested with the affairs of the union. But what we know is that the voice of our farmer, our member at a local level, is what is so critical, and that is what needs to come through all the time in our structures. So we created an advisory council, and you will see that our advisory council was then vested with providing the strategic direction, the industry-specific knowledge, our agricultural expertise, and it helps to inform our aims and objectives. And we did this to ensure, as I said, that voice of our farmer comes through to our structures. Our constitution is relatively unique in the fact that we provide for equal representation of our members. So at our advisory council, for example, we have both one black farmer and one white farmer from every district in our province. We have commodities that are represented on our advisory council. So it gives us a really holistic and inclusive approach when we deal with issues as a province. We obviously are non-profits and a voluntary membership organization. And one of the things that we've always looked at is to say, how can we be progressive? What are those solutions that we can offer as a provincial union? So moving along to the next slide, there are 4 pillars that we have based our organization on. And everything that we do, we look to these 4 pillars: being informed, having that legal foundation and ensuring that everything we do and that we put forward is economically and factually sound, that we work from a base of integrity that makes us credible, relevant, and integrated, and it allows us and it gives us that voice that makes us relevant and makes us want to be heard by relevant stakeholders. Professional image, being modern and progressive. I think today progressive is a word that we can use in terms of this Congress. But as a provincial union, we also need to look and ensure that we are professional in our approach, that our opinions are sought after. And very importantly is the socially and moral responsibility that we have as a provincial union, as local associations, and the compliance that we continually speak about across the board, and how we approach that as an organization. So then if we look at the next slide, we say as a provincial institutional structure, these are some of the things that we should be involved in, and I've just identified a few of those. As a structure, we can organize effectively and collectively. We can use our collective power, and that is that base that I spoke about a few minutes ago with respect to our farmers, our commodities, our corporates, our education institutions, all coming together as one. It provides us that collective voice that we have. We can act according to our mandates that our members give us at our Congress. And we need to be clear, considered influencers. I've used the word influencers because it's a new word, it's a new catchword that everybody uses today, but we have an opportunity to influence what happens around us. And we must not neglect that opportunity. And then lastly, we have, I think, the greatest opportunity, and during the presentations that have taken place already this morning, we've heard about driving and facilitating development and viable solutions. And as a provincial union, that's something that we have really pursued and look to see how can we make a difference. So if we look at our next slide, just to perhaps, and everybody knows what this changing environment looks like around us, but we know that we have a number of priorities that are dictated to us basically around social transformation, economic growth and transformation. And that puts us in a space that we need to say, how do we respond to those? Our operating environment has changed significantly over the past few years. It was just a few years ago, we had maybe 16 pieces of legislation that directly related to land issues. And as an organization, we have to continually ask ourselves, how do we inform our members? How do our members participate in that? The administrative compliance, sure, when we go and have a look at the last few months around COVID, the administrative compliance that our members have had to follow and meet has been so stringent and has really placed an extensive burden on them. But that environment has to be addressed. And how do we make it easier for our members to do what they need to do, which is produce the food for this country? And how then do they participate in that space? An interesting fact is membership. And, it always used to be a traditional conversation that farmers were always members of their local farmers association, of their provincial union, of their national body. But today there's so many choices, there's so many options that we have, and there's so many people that are talking on our behalf, on our members' behalf, on our farmers' behalf. So it makes it very difficult sometimes to know exactly where does one align oneself. And so it's that space in that which we operate. How do we address those issues? Social media and leadership. Well, if we look at leadership, governance, there's more liability on our leadership today that we have had ever before. Communication, and that takes me straight to social media. When we look at how quick social media is, fact versus fiction, and it's something that we have to continually do as a provincial union, have a look at what is fact and what is fiction. And we need to be looked at by our members to say, can you help us filter that which is actually incorrect or correct? And how do we respond to that? And I think really what we see in our changed landscape through technology, through social media, is that everything is now, it's instant. Sometimes I feel like we need to know yesterday what's already going to happen today, because that's the way how quickly things work. And then just the last thing is around the moral compass of our country and the landscape that we operate in. It's quite sad to see that principles and ethics, right versus wrong, is really being tested right now. And it's something that we as a provincial union and each of our members need to continue to uphold, that moral compass. And it's, as I say, it's something that is really a test to us at this time. So moving along, if we look at the provincial focus areas, yesterday we heard from the different centres of excellence. And in each of our provinces, we also need to make sure that our members' voices are heard on the different centres of excellence, on these specific focus areas that have been identified at a national level. So, for example, in our province, we will deal with the issues that fall into those centres of excellence, so that when we come together as a body, all united up in Pretoria, we talk about these issues, we can participate, we can inform, we can influence, and we can make a difference when it comes to these. And likewise, going back down all the way through our structures, back to our members, advising them how do they participate in this landscape that they have with respect to environmental issues or water issues or Eskom or whatever those may be. So, today we find ourselves dealing with the issues that we've always had to deal with. And those haven't gone away, but what we have found is that there's been a whole lot of new issues and challenges perhaps placed on us. And the question is, how do we respond to that? How do we ensure that we are acting in a socially and morally responsible manner? How do we continue to participate as a professional in that? How do we keep our integrity, and how do we ensure that the foundations upon which we have as an organization, those continue to come through? So I'm going to not go into the day-to-day issues that we have over so many years had a look at, but perhaps just to share with you a provincial perspective on how we've looked at and adapted in this changing landscape that has occurred. So if we can go to our next slide. One of the areas that we have obviously found in our province, and particularly in KZN, is that the protection of property and land rights is becoming absolutely critical to be very clear and express ourselves on. So what we did is we've appointed a full-time person to run our land desk, and they have a number of responsibilities. Amongst those is the protection of property and land rights, to facilitate and assist members in respect of identifying and formulating solutions relating to land reform. And I must be honest, it has been so rewarding and exciting to see how our members have actually responded to the opportunities that do exist, how they're making a difference in terms of transformation. And we've got a whole lot of models that have been coming up, and we're busy working with the farmers, working with the communities, working with land, with labor, whoever those stakeholders are at a local level. And it's, as I say, really exciting to see how positive the contribution is to finding solutions. In addition, our manager there is looking at how do we continue to inform the policy and legislation. And this is what is so important from a provincial perspective, is that we are able to provide those inputs into the Centre of Excellence that is sitting at Agri South Africa. And I know that over the last few weeks and months, we've been dealing with the blended financing policy, for example, and a number of other pieces of legislation, which we've been able to give valuable input, because we've been able to hear our views, hear our voices of our members, and ensure that that gets taken through all the way up to a national level. As I mentioned, looking at partnership models, we've asked our members, do you have an appetite for a partnership model? How are you going to participate? What does that funding look like? And together with our commodities and corporates, find those models. And, it was interesting to hear the speaker this morning and to hear JP yesterday talking about the opportunities that exist for us as provinces, for us that exist for our members. And as I say, as a province, we feel that we have an opportunity, and we've responded in order to provide those solutions. In our province, we find that we have a vast number. In fact, we've got thousands of labour tenant claims that still remain outstanding. And you would have heard some of those tensions come through recently in a meeting up in northern KZN, where there's a lot of expectations that have been created. There's issues of law and order. And the question is, how do we deal with those? We know that we've got a special master. Annalise yesterday spoke about that in the Centre of Excellence. We've got a special master that's been appointed. But for us, it's an opportunity to say, how do we engage with that special master? How are our members' voices heard? And what are the solutions that we can put on the table that are going to be sustainable and ensure that there's protection of property and land rights at the end of the day? And likewise with restitution. We've engaged with the Commission and we look forward to further engagements with them, because there again, we still have thousands of restitution claims in our province. It's just so exciting to see how people have responded, how our farmers have responded, how our members have responded in the province. And then our land desk is also looking at the farmer profitability opportunities. And I'm not going to go into the details there, but again, huge amount of options and opportunities that exist. The next area that we've looked at, if we can move along, is our development desk. And we're really proud of our achievements of our development desk. And we've had a development desk in place for quite some time now. And I know this is a little bit complicated on the board, but basically we've asked ourselves, and we continue to ask ourselves, what role can we play in terms of development? What are the programs and implementation strategies that we can use to assist our small-scale communal farmers? We have 2.9 million hectares of communal land in KwaZulu-Natal. That is nearly 50% of the land of our province. So there's a huge amount of opportunity for us to participate in that space. We also have an opportunity to work with our land reform groups, of which there are a number, and we know that many of them have been failing. And the question is, how can we play a role? What is that we can do? And I think very importantly, the opportunities that exist with the commodities and with the corporates to actually address those challenges, to ensure that profitability of farms that have failed and the impact that it's had on the mills and the economic activity within communities is certainly addressed. So, our development desk works on the ground with the communities, with those new emerging farmers, with emerging farmer groups, to see what that difference is and how we can facilitate and bring together, whether it be the financing or the training or the education. And for us, it's been really exciting. We've been able to link and offer those opportunities to farmers at a developmental level around education, which we again spoke a few minutes ago. I saw the questions about education. What are those opportunities that exist? So, it's just, I just get so excited because there's so much that we're doing and the difference that we are making as an organization. And as we make these differences, it helps our voice to remain strong, credible, and relevant at the end of the day. Just moving along to the next slide. One of those activities that we've been very proactive in is around taking 100 unemployed graduates and placing them in learnerships. We've just done this. This has happened in the last few weeks. And it's just so exciting to see the number of commodities that we are involved in. And again, that's why I keep talking about our commodities, our corporates, our farmers, but it's the collective work that we do together, working as one, moving forward as one organization. So this list, and I'm sure as I've spoken now, you've glanced through this. As I say, it's so exciting to see that we have an opportunity to influence and effect change. Unemployed graduates that never had that opportunity presented to them have now been placed in learnership programs. And I can tell you that we've been doing this for a number of years now. And the success of this, it's at least a 75% success rate that once these young people have finished their learnership, are taken up in management positions, in full-time employment. And I think that is an absolutely amazing statistic. And it just shows that we have got so much opportunity and we can make a difference just through small programs. So one of the next areas that we have specifically focused on, if we can move on to the next slide, is around safety and security. And we created our desk a number of years ago, and it has allowed us to represent our members on relevant safety structures, whether it be at a local, at a provincial, at a national level, and specifically look at farm attacks, farm murders, stock theft, the theft of non-ferrous metals, etc., etc. Through our organization, our liaison with stakeholders is incredibly strong. And we recently held a webinar where we had all the top players in our province, the top stakeholders in our province, participate in a conversation around safety and security, hunting with dogs, land invasions, the theft of stock theft, etc., etc. And it was really encouraging to see how we are recognized as an organization that is a voice that is credible and relevant, and that we've been acting with integrity through our process. It goes back to those 4 pillars that I spoke about earlier this morning. So what, just moving in our security desk, as I said, we look at working with our stakeholders, providing submissions, gathering details and statistics of crime. It allows us to speak on a factual basis. It's not that we suck these things out of our thumbs. We know exactly where we stand. We know how many victims there were, what were the circumstances that occurred. And we have been, for the last 22 years, collecting these statistics. So it allows us and it shows us the trends, and that we can then, as I say, speak with conviction, speak with knowledge. We also conduct an annual analysis of farm attacks and farm murders, which tells us every single detail about any one of those incidents that have occurred. And that assists us in saying to our members and giving guidance to our members around these practical tips. We get complacent, so many of us, and it's so important to remind ourselves of what are those practical things. Guideline documents. What do you do when you are faced with a situation where there's hunting with dogs taking place on your property? What do I do? How do I respond? How can I respond? Who do I call? What do I do? And likewise, with the police at a local level, we've also looked to see how can we, at local level, work with our police, work with our safety and security structures. What are their responsibilities? And assist them so that we together can address those issues. And it's not just a top-down approach, but it's working within our communities, working at a local level continually. Just one major success that we have found is that because we've had this proactive approach, we've been able to, as I say, collect information, and we can speak with a knowledge and factually sound position. And that's enabled us to provide expert evidence in court cases. And we have found that through many of those court cases, there have been convictions and sentencing that is really unheard of in terms of the crimes that have been committed. And I think a lot of that comes down to us being able to put that fact on the table. And that's what I say, as a provincial union, we have an opportunity to represent our members continually with the information at each level that needs to be heard. So if we move along to the next slide. As I said in the beginning, one of those landscape changes that we've seen has been around social media. And so as an organization, we had to sit back and say, well, okay, how do we participate? How do we respond to this space that's changed? And I think today is an excellent example of that. But likewise with our farmers, long ago, we all used to put everything in the post. That doesn't work today. So how do you communicate? And so as an organization, we've had to say, we need a plan. We need to have this multifaceted approach. We need to ensure that we remain informed, and that each action that we undertake is part of our plan at the end of the day. So, for example, we've said, how do we reinforce the tangible value of our membership? What are those messages that we put out there? How do we remind our members of what we do? How do we recruit new members? So, for example, part of our ongoing PR campaign has been to influence the public about the good work our farmers do. So often we forget about the good things and we're not sharing that information. And so it's something that we've really focused on, is telling the stories of our farmers, telling the stories of success. Obviously informing our members around the importance of the role of Kwanalu, of Agri SA, of our organizations, and what that value is and what it brings to our members at the end of the day. And very important is to manage negative and inaccurate agricultural information. And, one of the success factors that I have seen is that we often see WhatsApps being sent. Someone sends it, and then all of a sudden it lands on your desk, and someone says to me, this has come to me. Is it true or is it, not? What must I do? What must I say to my members? And so we're finding ourselves a center of checking and of valid information. And I think as a provincial union, we need to be that point. We need to be the place that our members see is distributing the correct information, and it will assist at a local level to then address the challenges that may be occurring. We issue press releases. We, as I said, we talk about success stories. We have a Telegram messaging service. It helps our members to have instant messages on their phones. And we've really looked to establish a digital footprint. And when we first started our campaign 3 years ago, we started with a zero-based a Facebook page, for example. And today we have over 30,000 users on that Facebook page. And for me, that's a huge success. And our PR desk that has actually done all our work, in fact, won a gold award at the Prism award ceremony just a while ago. And it's so encouraging to see that what we do as a province is also recognized at the end of the day, and that the actions that we're taking are what needs to be done, and how we can make an influence. One of the interesting things, just as a side, is, often people say, oh, but Facebook, it's just for women, Well, I can tell you that the Kwanalu Facebook page has got a 67% male participation, which is really exciting for us. And it's definitely not the norm. But it tells us that we're doing something right. It tells us that we are getting our messages across. So if we move along, one of the other opportunities that we felt that needed to be addressed was, and we know these are national priorities, is women in agriculture. And so during the month of August, we held a Women in Agriculture campaign, and it was the most inspiring moment this year that we've really had. We had more than 300 women participate, 300 women who are involved in agriculture in one form or another. And we came together, we formed a wall of recognition. It is on our on our website. And we've had the most inspirational stories, and that culminated in a webinar at the end of August. And for us as an organization, as a provincial union, we have an opportunity to continue to grow our membership and bring women in agriculture into our organization. And likewise with our youth, and it's something that we are certainly going to continue looking at. How do we grow that? How do we bring everybody together to work together as one? Just lastly, I just want to, if we can go to the next slide, just saying, where do we go into the future? And, our focus must remain on agriculture and rural development to provide that sector-specific focus in a decisive, progressive, and united approach. And I think during my presentation, you will have seen and heard how we're looking to work together as one united group. And together it makes us stronger. Always and constantly looking at how do we influence, how do we bring about change using our commodity, member, and affiliation base, as I've mentioned. And at all times strive to be powerful influencers, ethical leaders, and how do we reach higher achievements in all the areas in which we focus on a progressive and solution-orientated approach. So thank you very much this morning, Pierre, to the team up in the office there, for the opportunity just to share with you a provincial perspective And I look forward to any questions that might be coming my way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandy. I'm going to. You can't walk away yet. Maybe there's going to be some difficult questions, but I'm going to give Mihlali first the opportunity to do some questions and answers with you, and I suppose then Christo will, if you see the other questions coming from the audience, Mihlali will also handle those with you. Thank you very much for a very insightful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
The first question from our side is that we're seeing a declining number in commercial farmers over the years due to policy uncertainty, climate change, and many other risk factors that the agricultural sector is exposed to. What do you think is the greatest challenge for farmers in the KZN region, and how do you think we can retain the number of commercial farmers who play an integral part to agriculture?
Thank you, Mshali, for that question. Yes, it is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. And I think that's exactly where we as an organization have identified that as something that we need to focus on. And therefore, we've created that land desk to say how and what are the solutions that we can find to retain membership, and not only retain membership, but to grow membership. And that's why we're saying, looking at our communal areas, looking at our emerging farmers, looking at new commercial farmers, young people that are finishing their education, how do we integrate them into our farming communities, into our rural areas? So, there's opportunity. And as I say, as an organization, our mandate is certainly how do we rather grow those numbers. And I think our Women in Agriculture campaign is exactly one of those opportunities that has presented itself. We have a number of women commercial farmers that haven't perhaps participated in the discussions that we've had over the years. And now people are finding their voice, and we need to ensure that we are inclusive in our approach.
Perfect. Sandy, we have another question from a viewer. Do you have any advice for new entrants in farming, especially with non-GMO farming practices and organic farming?
Yeah, interesting question. We actually partnered a few years ago with the University of Missouri, and we looked at NGO varieties and GMO varieties and things like that. And we had some very interesting models that we looked at. And again, these are very, I'd like to sort of say this is a more specific commodity-based question, and I don't want to step on the commodity terrain because we respect them in terms of that. But I think that at a local level, you have your study groups, and we need to work together at that local level, work within our commodity groups to understand what the opportunities are, whether it be with organic or GMO farming. And as I say, there's a lot of expertise that exists, and we have, over the last few years, invited people to participate in conversations around that and have a look at those opportunities that exist. So it really comes down to being involved, finding the right network, and certainly in our province, when we get that call, we answer it by seeing how we can facilitate a training session or a conversation with respect to that.
Perfect. Another question from one of our viewers, Sandy. As considered influencers, have you just done the right thing or made active inputs into government systems, such as integrated development plans at a local level, or both? Please share your strategy with the audience, please.
Sure. So if I had to share our strategy, I'd like to have another couple of hours. Thanks, Pia. No, look, I think at the end of the day, it's easy to play lip service, and lip service is not going to achieve what we need to have in South Africa. And that is why we as an organization have been extremely proactive. And when it comes to integrated rural development, we have played a role, we play a role, and we make sure that we are at that table. And it's not only about saying, okay, we're going to participate in a discussion that informs legislation, but it's also asking the question, how do we participate in a conversation that is going to bring meaningful change, meaningful solutions? And that's where, as I say, our Congress as Agri, as Kwanalu, have taken those mandates, have taken those decisions. And that's why we see the practical application of our development desk, of our land desk taking place, to see that it's not just about saying things, but it's actually doing things and finding and achieving solutions that are going to be lasting.
We have another question here, Sandy. What is your perspective on sustainability? What are your thoughts on intensive farming, especially animal agri, chemical pest control, dominant multinationals?
Sure. Okay. So again, very specific questions to, I think, some of our commodities and our corporates there, and I don't want to step on their space around that. But I think the mandate that we have is to look at how do we as an organization promote sustainable, profitable agriculture. And I'd just like to leave it at that, because to answer the question, I think I might need a little bit more time. Thank you.
And Sandy, I think as a leader at a provincial level, what would you say were your biggest challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic, and how did you navigate those issues?
Yeah, certainly. It demanded a lot of time and energy and commitment. And for me, being part of this organization, being part of organized agriculture, um, time is not your own. We're here to serve our members. We're here to serve our farmers. And for us, it was to ensure that everything we did was to enable them to be able to continue doing what they need to do in their farming and business practices. And certainly there were lots of very late nights, very early mornings, and time didn't actually mean anything, because, as I say, for me personally, it was to say, how do we ensure our members are able to continue during the COVID-19 situation that they found themselves in. And certainly I had the privilege and honor of chairing our provincial unions CEO forum, and I mean we had significant time and meetings that we allocated to ensure that we were helping and taking the message from our members through and ensuring that they were part of that essential service group, addressing the challenges, and then likewise going back to our members and assisting them with the vast amount of compliance that they had to meet during COVID-19 in particular.
And Sandy, for you, how has Kwanalu gone beyond preaching collaboration and public-private partnerships over the last few years?
Yeah, I think that's where, we didn't just say we're going to do it, we've done it. And if you visit us, you will see our boardroom. Our boardroom is completely integrated. We sit together as one organization, emerging, small, medium, large, women, men, as one together. And as I say, that hasn't just been a change in our constitution. We've actually effected that change and made sure through our modeling of leadership, our programs that we've run, how we've structured ourselves, it allows for that, and it has brought about meaningful change at the end of the day. And as I say, it hasn't just been lip service, we've actually done it. And it's not something that people are finding it's difficult. It's just part of the way we do things now. It's part of the new landscape that we're in, and we've embraced that. And as I say, we are just flying as an organization, as one united group.
Sandy, I have another question for you from MJ. I'm interested in partnering with rural communities in KZN. Can Kwanalu help? If yes, what do I do next?
Well, you are very welcome. We look forward to that. And I would like to just suggest you contact our offices. Our email address for our land desk is land@kwanalu.coza. You're welcome to engage with us through our office, and we look forward to seeing what we can do together.
Another question for you here, Sandy. It is common knowledge that most new entrants don't last long in the sector. Have you had great success in retaining the new entrants in the farming communities of KZN?
Look, I think every business has its challenge, and certainly we know that many of our new entrants have struggled, and one of the major factors has been access to finance. But it's not only access to finance, it's access to information, technology, education, etc. And so, as I say, as an organization through our development desk, we've really focused on saying how can we ensure that new entrants are not lost along the way, and what role can we play? And that's where, as an organization, we facilitated corporates financiers, commodities to meet with those communities, to start working with them and enabling them to identify what it is that they require and address those specific needs. And, over the years, we've seen some amazing successes and amazing projects, groups that are continuing to farm successfully today.
And Sandy, seeing that you represent quite a large constituency of farmers, how do you pinpoint which risks, which challenges, and which opportunities to take up first? How do you measure that?
Yeah, so obviously we have our pillars, and everything we do, we measure against those pillars that I spoke about earlier. We have our board, and then we have our advisory council. And as I mentioned, our advisory council is vested with that strategic interest, that strategic focus, and that strategic direction. And that is generated by our membership. And so we're able to test it and measure it within that structure that we have, that institutional structure that we have. So, just a very simple answer, that is where we would go and test it and identify the risks, working together and say, how do we mitigate that risk, or what is the opportunity or solution that exists? So really, we have a strong institutional structure that provides that framework to work within.
And Sandy, if you could share with us, what do you think the future of agriculture looks like? What trends are you seeing at a local level that you think corporates or commodity groups should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, certainly in our province, we're seeing a shift from some of the commodities that sort of have always been grown in our province. There's certainly a shift to look at new niche opportunities, and it's something that is growing quite quickly in our province. We're seeing a lot of our farmers are consolidating, but having said that, at the same time, we're seeing a lot of farmers are saying, wow, we've got opportunity, we've got growth. And I think we've heard over the last 2 days that coming through, that there's optimism in the sector. Yes, given the risks, given the concerns that exist, but there are those opportunities. And I'm very optimistic. And I think for us in our province, we've really continued to say, what are the opportunities? Yes, the challenges exist, and we need to have a very clear strategy on how to deal with those challenges. How do we face those, not run away from them? But at the same time, how do we look for the solutions? And I think every speaker and over the last few months and over the course of, as I said yesterday and today, we've heard that we need to find those solutions. That lies within our hands, and that opportunity exists for us to find those together, put them on the table and continue to drive them. And that's certainly, as I say, what we are looking at doing in this province.
Thank you so much, Sandy, for answering all our viewers' questions this morning. I'll cross over to Pierre, who will then close the session.
Thank you.
Sandy, thank you very much. It sounded like you were actually sharing some intellectual property with us. Thank you very much for leading. You make us proud. You make us proud of how you go about doing your business in Kwanalu. It's something that we can all, other provinces, get note of. It just shows what we do in organised agriculture. Thank you very much again. This was a wonderful interview and a wonderful presentation from you. And thank you very much from my side too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm then going to give Alvin another opportunity. He's going to make another announcement. Specifically, I don't know what, but he's going to do the talking now for a few minutes, and then we will move on with our agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's again my pleasure to announce that Jaco Minnaar has been appointed as First Deputy President. Received the confirmation from the auditors that the voting process has been completed and he was appointed. In order to follow due process, we will now leave open for another 5 minutes nominations for Second Deputy. I just want to confirm that Mr. Phineas Kumeri did confirm that he also stands for that position when the election started for First Deputy. But in duty bound, we have to leave it open for a period just to confirm that there are no further nominations. So we will give 5 minutes for that to complete, and then we will come back to a Congress on the result of that.
Baie dankie Alwyn. Ons gaan dan voort met ons program. Ek wil vir Jaco sê baie geluk. Dit is besonder aangenaam om saam met hom te werk. Dit maak groot deel van ons span uit en hopelik gaan ons baie suksesvol wees in die toekoms soos wat in die verlede was. Jaco, baie dankie vir jou bereidwilligheid.